walking on a quiet beach. The waves crash softly, the air smells of salt, and everything feels calm, until you see it. A single sneaker, half buried in the sand. You pick it up, curious, only to realize there's a human foot still inside. This isn't fiction. This is the horrifying reality of the Salish Sea, the place where the ocean keeps washing up human feet, and no one knows why. The sea has always been a place of mystery, vast, endless, and unknowable. It gives life, but it also takes it away, and sometimes it returns things that were never meant to be seen again. Off the rugged coastlines of British Columbia and Washington state lies the Salish Sea, a place of tranquil beauty, rolling waves, and postcard sunsets. But hidden beneath that beauty is a chilling truth that has haunted locals for over a century. Because for reasons no one can fully explain, this sea has an obsession with human feet. Since the late 1800s, severed feet still wearing sneakers, socks or boots have been washing ashore, one after another, decade after decade. Fishermen stumble upon them, families out for a walk discover them half buried in the sand. Tourists pick up what they think is driftwood, only to find something far more horrifying. Scientists claim it's all just tragic accidents and natural decomposition. Others whisper about serial killers, cults, and restless spirits of the drowned. But one fact remains undeniable: the Salish Sea keeps giving back pieces of the dead, and the mystery of why it happens here, and nowhere else quite like it, has never been solved. When people think of the Pacific Northwest, their minds often wander to towering evergreens, misty mornings, and endless stretches of blue water. It feels like nature's sanctuary, a place untouched, where silence is broken only by the cry of an eagle or the splash of a whale's tail. And in many ways, that's exactly what the Salish Sea appears to be. Stretching across the US-Canada border, this inland sea connects the bustling cities of Vancouver, Seattle, and Tacoma with the vast Pacific Ocean. It's a breathtaking network of channels, bays, and waterways, home to sea lions basking on rocky shores, orcas gliding beneath the surface, and humpback whales breaching in the distance. To the casual observer, it is paradise. But here's the unsettling truth. Beauty often hides the darkest secrets. Beneath those glittering waters lies a mystery that has baffled scientists, terrified locals, and fueled urban legends for well over a century. A mystery so strange, it feels like something out of a horror novel, because the Salish Sea, for reasons still not fully understood, has an eerie habit of sending human feet to its shores. Not whole bodies, not bones scattered by time, just feet, encased in sneakers or boots, floating gently until they wash ashore, ready to shock whoever stumbles upon them. Imagine walking down a beach at sunset. The tide is low. Seagulls circle overhead. You see a sneaker lying in the sand. It looks ordinary, weathered by salt and time. Maybe you think someone lost it off a boat, or a hiker misplaced it near the shore. But then curiosity gets the better of you. You nudge it with your shoe, or pick it up, and that's when you notice it's heavy, heavier than a shoe should be. You peek inside, and staring back at you is what remains of a human foot. That is the horror of the Salish Sea. This phenomenon isn't just rumor or ghost story, it's documented, it's real. Since the late 19th century, the waters here have delivered human remains onto its beaches. The discoveries have been so consistent, so grotesque, that the Salish Sea has gained global infamy. Journalists, criminologists, marine biologists, everyone has tried to explain it, and yet, even after more than 100 years, the mystery remains unsolved. Why only feet? Why in sneakers? Why here? Some say the sea is trying to give up its secrets, spitting back the remnants of tragedies long hidden. Others whisper darker theories, that this is the work of a serial killer, disposing of victims in a way that taunts investigators while terrifying the public. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: this sea is not just another picturesque body of water. It is a stage for a grim mystery, a place where beauty and horror collide, and every new tide brings with it the possibility that another shoe, another foot, will wash ashore, reminding us all that paradise can sometimes be the perfect mask for something sinister. The mystery of the Salish Sea isn't new. Its dark legend began long before smartphones, forensic DNA testing, or even the idea of serial killers as we know them today. The sea's first gruesome gift came in 1887, when Vancouver was still a young developing city. Back then, the shoreline was a place of opportunity. Fishermen cast their nets, traders docked their boats, and settlers walked the beaches, searching for whatever the tide might bring. On one unremarkable day, locals noticed a leather boot washed up on the sand. Leather was valuable in those days, expensive and reusable. To stumble across a boot was like finding a small treasure. But when they reached down and pulled it from the wet sand, their excitement curdled into horror. The boot was heavy, heavier than it should have been, and sticking out from inside was not just padding or seaweed, but the decomposing remains of a human leg. Word of the grisly find spread like wildfire. Whispers turned into stories, and stories hardened into legend. The location earned a macabre name, Leg in Boot Square. A casual nickname perhaps, but one that revealed just how disturbed the community truly was. A paradise had shown its first crack. Years passed, the horror faded into folklore, but the Salish Sea wasn't finished. On July 30th, 1914, in the nearby village of Kimquit, another discovery was made. A human leg, encased in a boot, was found near the mouth of the Salmon River. This time, newspapers like the Vancouver Sun picked up the story, suggesting it belonged to a man who had drowned the previous summer. But here's the problem: no one could explain how the leg had separated from the rest of the body. Drowning victims don't simply fall apart. And yet here it was, another severed limb, carried by the tide, and spat back onto the shore. For decades after, there were no further reports. Maybe people weren't looking, maybe they were too terrified to speak up, or maybe the phenomenon simply paused, waiting for a future generation to rediscover the horror. That's the strangest part about the Salish Sea mystery. It isn't constant, it comes in waves. First a discovery, then silence, then, when memory fades and the fear settles, another grim surprise. By the time the modern world caught up, people had all but forgotten about these early incidents. But if those first discoveries taught us anything, it's this: the Salish Sea has always had a taste for secrets, and sometimes it chooses to reveal them in the most grotesque way imaginable. 2 boots, 2 legs, 2 warnings. And yet, no one truly listened. For nearly a century the sea was silent. No strange discoveries, no severed limbs, just folklore, and the faint memory of those first boots. But in 2007, the horror resurfaced, this time in the age of the internet, where every discovery spread instantly and globally. It began on August 20th, 2007. A tourist visiting Jedediah Island part of the Salish Sea's intricate archipelago, noticed something odd resting on the shoreline. It was a size 12 Adidas sneaker. Scuffed, salt-stained, but intact. Curious, the tourist picked it up. Inside the shoe was a sock. Inside the sock was a man's right foot. The shock was immediate. Police swarmed the beach. Forensic tests revealed the foot belonged to a man who had gone missing earlier, someone battling deep depression. Authorities labeled it a likely suicide, tragic, but not criminal. Yet, just 6 days later, another foot washed up on Gabriola Island, another sneaker, another right foot, and suddenly the story exploded. The public was horrified. What were the odds? 2 feet. Both right, both still encased in sneakers, both drifting ashore within days of each other. Theories sprouted like wildfire. Was there a serial killer at work? Someone who collected victims, severed their feet, and tossed them into the sea like trophies? The media ran with it, and whispers of a Salish Sea killer spread across Canada and the US. Then the discoveries kept coming. In February 2008, a size 11 Nike with another right foot appeared on Valdes Island. DNA matched a young man who had been missing for 4 years. Police once again insisted his death wasn't suspicious. Later that year, hikers found the same man's other foot, washed ashore miles away. In May 2008, the first female foot was discovered, traced back to a woman presumed to have jumped from a bridge. Oddly, she had no history of depression, and no suicide note was ever found. By late 2008, yet another shoe, this time containing a man's remains, washed up near Washington state. The wave of discoveries was relentless. Every few months, another sneaker, another foot, another grim reminder that the Salish Sea was hiding something. By 2010, the phenomenon reached new levels of dread when a child's foot appeared on Whidbey Island. Months later, another child's foot surfaced near Tacoma. Suddenly, this wasn't just about depressed adults or unlucky drownings. Children's feet had entered the mystery, and the whispers of a serial predator grew louder. The strangest detail, every case seemed to follow a rhythm, a cluster of discoveries, then silence, then, almost like clockwork, another foot. Some believed the killer was watching the headlines, waiting for the right moment to strike again. By the time the decade closed, the beaches of the Salish Sea had offered up more than a dozen severed feet. Each discovery left investigators scrambling for answers, families begging for closure, and the public convinced that something far more sinister was happening beneath those deceptively calm waters. As the feet kept coming, explanations began to swirl. Scientists, journalists, detectives, each had their own theory, but none could fully explain the horror. The most sensational idea was also the most obvious: a serial killer. The pattern seemed undeniable. Many of the discoveries were right feet. Some shoes washed ashore in pairs, but rarely at the same time. A few feet were found wrapped or preserved in unusual ways, suggesting human involvement. The public seized on the theory. Newspapers speculated about a predator lurking in the Pacific Northwest, using the ocean as a dumping ground. Online forums buzzed with theories: a fisherman with a grudge, an organized killer taunting police, even whispers of an underground cult. But then came the scientists. Marine biologists pointed out that when a human body decomposes underwater, certain joints, like ankles, are especially vulnerable. The cartilage and ligaments weaken quickly, allowing feet to detach. And unlike other body parts, feet inside modern sneakers float. Foam soles are buoyant, meaning once separated, they could drift for miles before washing ashore. It was a chillingly logical explanation, and yet, it didn't sit right with everyone. Detectives who'd worked violent crimes knew how rare it was to find only one part of a body over and over again. One officer described the odds as 1,000,000 to 1. Another noted how suspicious it was that feet washed up in clusters, almost timed, rather than randomly, and most damning of all, why the Salish Sea, why here, and almost nowhere else in the world. Forensic experts argued that modern sneaker design played a role. Shoes in the early 2000s were lighter, more durable, and more buoyant than ever before. In other words, the very technology that made them comfortable might also have made them perfect carriers for human remains. Still, the darker theories wouldn't die. Every time a child's foot was found, or 2 feet appeared in close proximity, the serial killer whispers grew louder. Some suggested the killer may have deliberately chosen the sea, knowing decomposition would provide cover. Others pointed out the pauses between discoveries, the way activity spiked, then stopped, mirroring the cooling-off periods of many serial offenders. Even cultural theories emerged. Local First Nations communities spoke of the sea as a place of restless spirits, where those lost to the water sometimes return in pieces, carried by the currents. To them, the severed feet were not just biological accidents, but signs of deeper spiritual unrest. In the end, the theories fell into two camps. On one side, science, decomposition, and tragic accidents. On the other, human malice, a shadowy figure using the Salish Sea as their accomplice. Neither side could fully convince the other, and as long as more feet kept appearing, suspicion would never die. To calm the public's growing panic, scientists stepped in with detailed research. Their explanation was gruesome, but simple. When a human body enters the water, whether through drowning, accident, or suicide, it begins to break down. Fish, crabs, and other sea life feed on soft tissue. Water pressure and movement batter the body, weakening joints. Over time, limbs detach. The ankle in particular is one of the weakest joints in the body. It's held together by tendons and cartilage rather than strong bone. This makes it especially likely to separate during decomposition. Now add sneakers to the equation. Unlike leather boots of the 19th century, modern sneakers are designed with lightweight foam soles, made to absorb shock and resist water. That same foam is buoyant, meaning a detached foot inside a sneaker is far more likely to float than sink. Over weeks or months, ocean currents can carry it across vast distances before depositing it gently on a beach. On paper, it made sense. In fact, leading forensic entomologist Gail Anderson from Simon Fraser University argued that the phenomenon was nothing more than a natural process. Tragic, yes, but not sinister. But science had its limits. While it explained how the feet floated, it didn't explain why so many appeared in one region. Bodies enter oceans all over the world. Plane crashes, shipwrecks, drownings, they happen everywhere. Yet only here, in the Salish Sea, was the pattern so consistent. And then there was the uncomfortable question of timing. Why did the discoveries suddenly spike after 2007? Sneaker design improvements offered one theory: more buoyant shoes meant more floating feet, but even that didn't account for the sheer number of discoveries. Detectives also pointed out anomalies science couldn't brush away. Feet found wrapped in plastic bags. Children's feet, appearing within months of each other. The odd clustering of right feet. These weren't details easily explained by decomposition and ocean drift. Perhaps the most haunting flaw in the scientific explanation was emotional, not logical. Families of the missing struggled to accept that their loved ones' remains had simply broken apart, scattered like debris. For them, it was easier to believe in foul play than to accept such a brutal natural process. In the end, science answered some questions but not all. It painted part of the picture, but the darker brushstrokes, the patterns, the timing, the eerie coincidences remained, and in that gap between science and suspicion, the mystery only deepened. Today, the Salish Sea mystery remains one of the most bizarre, unsolved cases in modern history. Since 2007, more than 21 human feet have been recovered along its shores. Some have been identified, bringing bittersweet closure to grieving families. Many remain anonymous, silent victims claimed by the tide. Authorities continue to insist the phenomenon is natural. They point to accidents, suicides, drownings, tragic but explainable losses of life. Science supports them, providing logical mechanisms for why feet detach and float. And yet, the unease lingers. Detectives who have worked these cases openly admit how strange it all feels. One called it an anomaly. Another confessed that the odds of finding only feet and no other body parts over and over again defied probability. Even the most rational minds couldn't shake the suspicion that something or someone was behind it. For locals, the legend of the Salish Sea has taken on a life of its own. Beaches once seen as safe and serene are now tinged with unease. Every sneaker spotted on the sand carries a moment of dread. Is it just lost clothing, or is it another victim of the sea's morbid secret? Writers, podcasters, and filmmakers have tried to capture the mystery, but none can resolve it. Each theory, whether scientific or sinister, leaves questions unanswered. Was it really just the cruel mathematics of decomposition and buoyant footwear? Or was it the work of a hidden predator, using the vastness of the sea as cover, knowing the water would erase most of the evidence? Even stranger, the sea seems almost deliberate in its timing. Feet appear, then disappear, as if the ocean itself is choosing when to remind us of its horrors. Some believe the sea is simply giving back what was lost. Others whisper that it is mocking us, taunting us with fragments of lives we'll never fully account for. As of today, the case is unsolved, and perhaps it always will be. The Salish Sea has become more than just a body of water. It is a legend, a cautionary tale, a reminder that nature holds secrets we may never fully uncover. So the next time you walk along its shores, remember this: paradise often wears a mask, and sometimes what lies beneath that beauty is something you're better off not finding, because out there drifting just beyond the horizon, another sneaker may already be on its way to shore. But here's the question that refuses to die. Why only the feet? Not arms, not skulls, not torsos, always feet preserved, protected inside sneakers, and washing up like grim messages from the deep. Scientists will tell you it's just nature doing its work, but even the most experienced homicide detectives admit this pattern feels wrong, too precise, too deliberate. And if these aren't accidents, then someone out there knows the truth. Maybe a serial killer who hides in the silence of the waves. Maybe something far older, lurking beneath the Salish Sea, deciding what pieces of us are returned to shore. The ocean keeps its secrets well, but every once in a while it sends us a reminder, something horrifying, something impossible to ignore. So the real mystery is this: when the next shoe washes up, will it finally reveal the truth, or prove that the Salish Sea is hiding something we're not ready to face.